Hey, good evening, everybody. Huge news on the Epstein case. News of no news, that is. Would you believe that the tooth fairy doesn't exist? Would you believe that Santa Claus doesn't exist? Would you believe that the client list doesn't exist? Would you believe that no high profile people were involved in Jeffrey's evil doings? Would you believe that Jeffrey ended himself unalived himself? There was no foul play. Well, that's what the DOJ is trying to shove down our throats, folks. We've got crazy headlines all over the world. Trump and Elon going at it again. It started to bubble. And even in the UK now, in the last hour, Piers Morgan calls out Alina Habba for hyping incredibly disturbing Epstein files that never materialized. Hence, they don't exist. We have flight logs. We have information. Names that will come out, Alina Habba said in February, adding that multiple people would face prosecution for their involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. And now much of MAGA is up in arms over news that the Justice Department and the FBI have concluded that Jeffrey died by his own hands and didn't keep a client list to blackmail prominent figures. Piers Morgan tweaked one of the president's top acolytes today, previously promising incredibly disturbing details in the Epstein probe. What happened? Piers tweeted while sharing a clip of an interview conducted with then White House counselor Alina Habba in Feb. At the time, she insisted that the shocking Epstein files would be made public imminently. The DOJ and FBI issued a joint two-page memo this week summarizing the agency's exhaustive review of investigative holdings related to Jeffrey Epstein. Despite it being a matter of faith that Jeff was unalived, to keep him from revealing a laundry list of powerful clients who engaged in carnal relations with teenagers, the admin is now contradicting the very conspiracy it helped burnish in the first place, according to The Independent. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. The memo reads, there was also no credible evidence found that Jeffrey blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Notably, the two top officials in the FBI, Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino, spent the past few years devoting much of their energy, as MAGA media influencers devoting much of their energy to disputing the official claim that Epstein had done it himself, unalived himself, while awaiting trial. In recent months, though, both FBI leaders have reversed course on what The Independent describes as Epstein conspiracy mongering, and have insisted that he unalived himself based on evidence they reviewed. It isn't just Patel and Bongino who have faced the wrath of Trump supporters. Pam Bondi is also under fire to deliver on her promises following that ridiculous photo op when the influencers came out with the binders. Absolute PR garbage, insulting to our intelligence. Amid the meltdown over the memo, which has been spearheaded by Elon Musk, Habba's appearance on Piers Morgan's show quickly drew notice on social media. Quote, it is incredibly disturbing Haber, who is now the interim U.S. attorney for New Jersey, told Morgan this past winter. We have flight logs, information, names that will come out. After the British tabloid host wondered if the files would be shocking, Haber breathlessly hyped the possibility that multiple people would likely face prosecution once the information became public. Quote, I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not being held accountable. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. On top of that, she insisted that Patel and Bondi would make sure to follow through and hold Epstein's clients accountable, prompting Pierce to ask if that meant criminal actions would be taken. Absolutely. I think it would be negligent for us not to, she proclaimed, noting we don't have the time to hide lists or protect political friends. That soon changed, didn't it? Morgan, meanwhile, wasn't the only one to invoke Haber's past remarks and unambiguous vows that the admin would be filing charges against Epstein co-conspirators. They're lying to you. Trump's lawyer and acting New Jersey U.S. Attorney Alina Haber went on Piers Morgan a couple of months ago and stated they had everything regarding the Epstein files. That's from GOP Senate candidate Lauren Woodsk. So where is the accountability? And on 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 it goes, folks. And if you are watching this stream, I wanted to consult a regular man from society, my friend Liam, who you may see in the side with me next to Jeffrey. Liam was my sparring partner in martial arts this evening. And as we've got to know each other through our fitness regimens, it has come out that he has been watching Ryan Dawson for years, that he is well versed in conspiracy viewing and research, and he's not falling for this crap like anyone else who just sucks up the BBC, suckles at the BBC's garbage. Anyway, Liam, thank you for coming on, my friend. I know it must be a bit intimidating to be thrown onto a live stream after a gym session with a person with very short notice. But as a rational thinking human being, what are you making of all of these news stories that have come out today?
So I think the question is not have they lied, but why have they lied? I think the reason obviously is because they can't expose who Epstein worked for. Because if you unravel that, it's just like the JFK redacted documents. They had to redact not the CIA, but the foreign intelligence aspects. Because if they went back to one of America's greatest allies, they would have to end foreign aid to them and maybe even declare war on them. So it's no surprise to me that they did what they did today.
So, Liam, do we expect video footage to be produced now showing that the cameras were working in the jail the night of Epstein's unalivement, and this video footage will now show that nothing untoward happened that fateful evening?
Well, if you remember, years ago we were told the cameras weren't working, but interestingly now with the advancements of AI, I think they could probably make some videos that show everything fine, nobody entering the cell or leaving the cell. So yeah.
So viewers, put a 1 in the chat if you believe the FBI, the 3-letter agencies, that there is no client list, that there is no unalivement by external forces, no foul play, no powerful individuals. Put a 2 in the chat if you think that is complete and utter poppycock, it's up there with Saddam Hussein having weapons of mass destruction. I see lots of twos coming in. Thank you. And, you know, this is coming from the very same media outlets that told us Saddam has got weapons of mass destruction, that are telling us Iran was microseconds away from making a nuclear bomb. And, what's this? Be careful, Salty's live video. Oh, we're used to videos getting pulled, Kamala. We had a 7-7 survivor on earlier, and it's already been shadow banned and demonetized and everything. So thank you for the heads up, though. Yeah, absolutely insulting. You know, people often ask me about politics, and I say my definition of a politician is someone who says everything the public wants to hear to get your votes, to get in power. And then when they do get in power, they end up doing the complete opposite. Even if their intentions were good, they are told by the men in the suits, this is how it's going to be, or else you're going to get JFK'd. So time after time, we see people saying, we're going to get in, we're going to reveal this, we're going to reveal that, Epstein list, criminal indictments, etc. And what happens? They get in power, and it all gets flipped completely upside down. And they lie to our faces, say the complete opposite things they were saying before they got in power, with just the same veracity and condescending authority. They told us the exact same opposite things. So no wonder faith in politicians and lawmakers is at an all-time low, folks. I mean, this is just another slap, a huge slap in the face. As well as the Iran's got weapons of mass destruction, nuclear bombs one last month. This is the next huge slap in the face. Liam, why do you think they just keep sticking to these same old scripts? That anyone who's got an iota of common sense or has researched any kind of, you know, deep state activity is hip to.
Well, it's like, what did Carlin say? It's a big club and you're not in it. Because the two parties in America, they're paid for, aren't they, with the donor class? So if somebody gets in the party, they just have to take orders. I know Elon's now pretending he's going to make a third party, but I don't really know if that's real or not.
So I was listening to George Galloway speak about that last night with Scott Ritter, and what they were saying was that if Elon did form a party, not to form a full-on party, but just to get the swing states. And if he gets the swing states, then his party becomes the most powerful party in the country, because it'll have that decision-making power to just tip the vote this way, tip the vote that way. So that could be quite a good strategy. I was listening to that last night, and then I woke up this morning to Trump and Bannon saying that they're going to deport Elon Musk back to South Africa and pull his status, his citizenship status. What did you make of that, Liam?
It's interesting. I do think Elon and Trump are, I don't think this is fake. I think they have had a disagreement. Do you remember when Elon said Trump was all over the Epstein files? That's why he won't release them. That's interesting because that would save Trump as well. But having looked into it, I don't think Trump is as into the files as Elon is saying. I mean, he knew Epstein in the 90s. They were friends, they partied together, and then they kind of broke their friendship on a disagreement about buying a house, basically. They were both competing for it. And also Trump owned a tennis court, and Maxwell would go around and be procuring girls, teenage girls, to become masseuses and then other things. So I do think their connection was only until maybe the end of the 90s, and it wasn't anything incredibly deep. but it's obviously something Trump would want to squash. So he's benefited as well.
So if you've just joined us, folks, the news headline is that Jeffrey Epstein died by his own hands. This has now been confirmed by the FBI, Justice Department. Memo says investigators did not find evidence to predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Everyone gets to walk. From Bill Clinton to Bill Gates. A review of files held by the US government said there's no secret client list to be released and confirmed his unalivement at his own hands in federal custody. The memo said that a DOJ and FBI review, which has for years been teased as a treasure trove of information about a larger network of wrongdoing, has now concluded that no further charges are expected, as investigators did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. The Justice Department also released hours of footage taken from Manhattan's Metropolitan Correctional Center, showing no one entered or left the area where Jeffrey was held during, before, after the time medical examiners concluded he took his life. I see, Liam. So you're positing that this footage is AI now?
Yeah, definitely. Because they can't implicate their greatest ally, so they have to lie.
And they can't implicate the deep state. The deep state wants war in Iran. We'll pull out the old weapons of mass destruction lie. The deep state wants the Epstein files covered up. We will damn well rubber stamp that and go back on everything we've been saying for months, which was the complete opposite. What gets me, Liam, is how they get up in front of these cameras and say the complete opposite things. And they do it in this way that you can just, they look like stuffed corpse AI puppet, kind of, not even real people, just like hollow, soulless vassals. Like Keir Starmer embodies this. I mean, when you hear Keir Starmer speak, what goes through your mind, Liam?
He's just an empty vessel, isn't he? He sold us out to globalism. Yeah, don't like him. Horrible man.
Do you think he's acting in the best interests of the UK right now?
I think he's acting in the worst interests of the UK.
All right, so going back to the article in The Guardian, here's a quote. As part of our commitment to transparency, it's the pure Orwellian version, isn't it? It should be as part of our commitment to cover-upping. The Department of Justice and the FBI have conducted an exhaustive review. This is laughable, folks. I wish Ryan Dawson wasn't blind. We could get him on. Review. Oh, thank you, Bailey, for the membership for 6 months. An exhaustive review of investigative holdings relating to Jeffrey. It's added that the review included digital searches of its databases, hard drives, and network drives, as well as physical searches of squad areas, locked cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas where responsive material may have been stored. This is a joke. So let me just go back to when Epstein's property was raided in Florida. In the Florida police, at that time, employed was John Mark Duggan. At that time was Joseph Recurry. They seized video evidence from Epstein's property, and Joseph Recurry confided in John Mark Duggan. I don't think this is going to see the light of day if we give this to our superiors. And John Mark Duggan, who I interviewed personally, all got banned, told me that copies were made of it. FBI got copies of it, etc. They do have video evidence. Joseph Recurry, you can Google this, folks, mysteriously died in his 50s, completely healthy, in his prime, a cop. And John Mark Duggan was so fearful for his life and safety and freedom, he fled to Russia, where I believe he still resides. And I'm sure the cops just went and wrote up reports, the crooked ones, to say that nothing was found. So when you roll the clock forward to the present day, and we're hearing the officials announce the review included digital searches of databases, hard drives, network drives, physical search of squad areas, locked cabinet, desk, closets, and other areas. So basically, they've looked at reports that have been filed by people who were originally involved in the cover-ups. They've looked at data and hard drives that have been allowed to be seized by the cops because Epstein and Maxwell knew the cops were coming, and this stuff didn't have any stuff on it. And if any stuff was left out that they did have on it, it was hidden. So these guys could come in and say, we've looked at all this stuff, there's nothing to see, because everything was carefully hidden from the get-go when Jeffrey, you know, it was all being handled so carefully so that it wouldn't go up the chain to Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, and all these other people that we have spoken about on this channel. If you didn't see my interview with survivor Juliette Bryant, that's the most recent Epstein survivor interview I've done. It was published months ago. She's talking about going around the world with Bill Clinton and Jeffrey and various other huge names. And now they're telling us there is no client list. Well, I'd love to hear what Juliette Bryant has got to say about this. Do you think there was no client list, Liam?
Well, if we want to talk about evidence, we've got the court cases. We've got the court cases, the settlements for Miss Roberts, Miss Giuffre, Prince Andrew, Dershowitz, all these people. So we know the client list. We know the Microsoft executives were going to the island. We know Bill Gates went to the island so much, he was hiding from his wife. He had his second car she didn't know about. So he could fly to the island and say it was a business trip. So yeah, information's out there, but it doesn't matter to most people, does it?
And we know that Bill Clinton was on the flight logs dozens of times, left his security detail behind, and all of the other names on the flight logs were East European sounding girls. And we know from the pipeline, Jean-Luc Brunel, chief procurer number 2, boasting that he was procuring these girls from poor families in Eastern Europe. We know the names matched that pipeline that Clinton was on the flight with. And we also know about this gentleman on the screen right now. Virginia alleged they went to the island. There was 3 allegations with him, Queen's favorite son. And Virginia said there was a group activity, let's say, where he was involved, Maxwell, Jeffrey, Jean-Luc Brunel, and they were boasting, as these things were happening with underage East European girls, they were boasting how they were the easiest ones to do these things to because they didn't speak any English. That's from legal papers filed in the case between Virginia and Maxwell. But mainstream media tend to stay away from that. So it looks like these guys are going to get away with this, folks, yet again. You know, this current administration in America have done a complete U-turn, and all of the big wigs are going to get protected. I mean, how does that make you feel, Liam, when our hopes are raised? You know, we've been speaking about this stuff over the months. Our hopes are raised that some big names are going to get held responsible for their evil deeds. And then yet again, it all gets covered up.
I mean, I didn't think much was going to come of this. Yeah, I think this whole Trump administration has sort of really disappointed me. But yeah, with the Epstein things, the small wins we've had in the courts so far, that will be all it is. Now we've got Maxwell, obviously behind bars, Epstein dead, a few other players also in jail, there won't really be anything else. Like anybody who thought that they were going to just release all the files, like you must be crazy. Surely, like, yeah. So it's not a surprise to me. It's depressing, but it's the world we live in, you know, so we're used to it now, aren't we?
Indeed. And I just want to let the viewers know that last week I interviewed Epstein's niece. We have been in dialogue for months, and she finally felt comfortable enough to come on. And she posited there is the possibility that Jeffrey is still alive. And I hope to have that pre-record edited and out in about a week or so. And Epstein's niece is an absolutely lovely person, speaks powerfully, eloquently, and has been through absolute hell of what's happened in her family and what's happened in her life. And I think you guys are going to be blown away by her testimony. So, in contrast to what's been the news that's been released today, you know, many times when these stories keep going viral on Twitter, Elon Musk keeps resurrecting them. I go to the beginning of my book, Who Killed Epstein, and read exactly what happened upon the fateful night. But in this case, I do want to go to my book, Who Killed Epstein, again, and look at chapter 18, whereby we go back to, we kind of like go back to the beginning of the book here. So I'm going to read a bit of this to you guys. Immediately after his arrest on July 6, 2019, at the airport, he was taken to the MCC, incarcerated in a section known as 9 South, or the Hole, an extra high security zone for violent criminals or those requiring protection, such as PDFs. His cellmate was Nicholas Tartaglione, who I have corresponded to, and I sent a copy of Who Killed Epstein to, but he stopped communicating with me after that. I didn't want it. He was trying to get his sentence reduced from the death penalty, and I think he did. Possible quid pro quo for maybe some kind of involvement in what happened to Jeffrey. Anyway, if you're not familiar with Tartaglione, he was a big muscle-bound ex-cop who killed 4 men over unpaid drug money. He looked like the Hulk, and he looked like he could have just killed him with his bare hands. Prosecutors were seeking the death penalty at the time Epstein moved in with him. So it's hard to think of anyone more intimidating as a cellmate, which was perhaps an intentional move. Initially, other inmates and Tartaglione's lawyers claimed that he and Epstein were friends. Perhaps Epstein was buying off Tartaglione like he had so many before, with promises of money and legal help. We know Jeffrey was playing the same trick with other inmates, buying commissary items such as snacks, drinks, and special meals at inflated prices, which the other prisoners could use to buy their own items. One of the inmates who Jeffrey first got to know was William Dollar Bill Mersey, a man who had run an escort website and was in prison for tax fraud. According to the book The Spider by Barry Levine, Epstein and Mersey were put together by another inmate, Miles Tisdale, as part of a scheme Tisdale ran to partner new at-risk inmates with experienced companions to help them learn the ropes. According to the book, Mersey said Jeffrey was worried about being attacked, specifically by black inmates, saying he had been bullied by black kids at school. Mersey advised Jeffrey to look fellow prisoners in the eye and stand his ground. However, Jeffrey's worries grew, and he even considered hiring another inmate to work as his bodyguard. Another problem for Jeffrey was the guards, who seemed to take a dislike to him, especially because he was throwing money around to buy off prisoners, and because he was using meetings with his lawyers as an excuse to get out of his cell for prolonged periods of time. According to the book Epstein, Dead Men Tell No Tales, an inmate said that the guards treated him worse than other prisoners, denying him toilet rolls and essential cleaning items when he requested them. In the meantime, he had been charged with the transportation and conspiracy to transport, to which he had pled not guilty. and he was waiting to find out if he would be granted bail. His lawyer's case was built around the fact that he had not been charged with any further crime since his Florida sentence, thus proving that Jeffrey had controlled his unnatural urges. So basically, he thought he was going to get released. He thought he had a good chance. He's pre-trial. And yet we are supposed to believe now that he unalived himself. He told his own lawyer that he was confident of getting some play in the legal system and he was looking forward to possibly getting out. So I've read that because it makes absolutely no sense at all. He had no motivation at all to unalive himself. Yeah, he was going through a rough prison experience, the shock of the newly incarcerated. Everybody goes through that. Everybody goes through that. So what happened was he ended up with marks on his neck, and he said that his cellmate had done something to him. And there is the possibility that Tartaglione had tried to unalive him, and it failed. I mean, there is that prison code to kill PDFs on site as well. So, you know, that would be an added bonus if an inmate had done that to him. They would get the kudos for doing that. So my theory was that facing the death penalty, Tartaglione might have been hired to perform the hit in a quid pro quo for a reduced sentence. When I wrote this book, Who Killed Epstein, Tartaglione still had no trial date. But my understanding is now that Tartaglione did not get the death penalty. Everyone who's involved in the enabling of what happened here, good things happened to them. The guards who simultaneously fell asleep get promoted. The warden gets promoted. Everyone gets promoted to play along with the charade. So even Epstein claimed that Tartaglione had tried to strangle him. Near the time of the incident, he told Tisdale that he'd been strangled and didn't name the culprit. According to Barry Levine's book, Tisdale told Levine all he did is make a strangling motion to himself with his hands around his neck. And I said, someone else tried to strangle you, and he gave me a nod. Epstein told another inmate, Mersey, I woke in the middle of the night to get a glass of water, and that's the last thing I remember. Which leaves open another option that someone outside of Jeffrey's cell, perhaps the prison staff itself, had tried to unalive him. But now Liam is saying that they're showing videos now saying no one had access. And Liam saying this is AI videos. So easy to make these days. And it's simple to organize a hit in prison. They will kill you for a 50 bag of H, the brown stuff that people inject. So, what actually happened? Was there a hit by Tartaglione? Had Tartaglione disturbed the hit? How would they have gotten away after the hit? Had the guards arranged with Tartaglione himself that he would hit Epstein and they would cover it up in return for favors? This would explain the rough handling of Jeffrey's body, as if they expected him to remain dead. Perhaps they hadn't bargained on the staff at the infirmary actually being able to resuscitate him. Whatever the case, the implications for Jeffrey weren't good. I'm just describing what happened to this point with the first attempt on him. Then he was relocated to the ultra-secure unalive prevention wing, where life becomes way more restricted. He was in solitary confinement with little or no luxuries, dressed in a gown made of paper, forced to sleep in paper bed sheets so he couldn't unalive himself. He was allowed no books at the night time. Lights were switched on so he could be observed at all times. And it was now that Epstein claimed Tartaglione had tried to unalive him. Either using this line or some other approach, he appears to have convinced the visiting psychologist that he was no longer an unalivement threat. And incredibly, within just 6 days of his unalivement attempt, he was returned to his old wing. Again, there's more than one possibility here. Was it his persuasiveness alone that released him from the unalivement watch? Or did the prison staff have a hand in it? Staff who supposedly hated him and would be more than happy for him to take his own unalivement. Whatever the case, when Jeffrey turned up for hearing 2 days later on July 31st, he appeared out of it, according to victim's lawyer Gloria Allred. His smirk had vanished. He was silent, unresponsive throughout the brief hearing. Had he given up? Apparently not. On August 1st, he arranged a meeting with Atlanta-based lawyer David Shaun to discuss him taking over the case. Shaun said that Jeffrey was in good spirits, and they had agreed to meet again the following week. On the 8th, Jeffrey had another meeting with his attorneys, this time to update his will. The outcome saw his fortune placed in a sealed trust that would make it much more difficult for his victims to get their hands on it. The 1953 trust, named after the year of his birth, would protect the identities of his beneficiaries and would erect several more barriers between the survivors and his estate. As well as having to win their case in court to receive a portion of the estate as compensation, the survivors would first have to persuade a judge to release the details of the beneficiaries.